So the more discoverable I can make you, and whether that's through consistency, whether that is through just core creative, but for me, it's an earned respect. And
Earned
I
respect.
would hate for people to not post something because they don't have a content strategy. I want them to be the content strategy.
Welcome to the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. If you're looking for the ideas that can be your breakthrough for change in your business, career, or personal life, then this podcast is for you. Join Adrian as he speaks on topics of personal and professional development for the individual and interviews a variety of entrepreneurs, business owners, and thought leaders to reveal their ideas and solutions to success and its challenges. Subscribe to the show and leave us a review. It's time to be a courageous creator of your own change and be purposeful about doing it.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. And today I have a special guest on, and his name is Vinnie Potestivo. Did I say that right, Vinnie?
That's it. Vinnie Potestivo. There's two sides of my family. They say it both ways.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I said it right the right way. Then one of those ways, then. Yes. That's good. All right. So Vinnie is a former MTV executive during the golden years. This is a 1998 from 2007. And
I tell you.
I'm telling you, that was a powerful time. We're going to get into this a little bit about this golden year of being on MTV. But first, let's talk about Vinnie's bio here, because he's got a lot that he's bringing to this conversation today. As a former MTV executive who helped launch celebrity talent during MTV's golden years, he's now jumping into the spotlight as a host and producer of his brand new podcast, I Have a Podcast. I like that title.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The podcast's initial guest lineup includes celebrities whose careers he impacted, including the likes of Mandy Moore, Christina Milian. Oh, I love her music. Oh, my goodness. Danielle Fishel, Ananda and Vanessa Lachey, along with additional creatives, including artists, producers, and even a clothing brand who is making a positive community impact, Happy Jack. I like that name. Vinnie helped launch MTV Network's talent and series development department, where he worked for nearly a decade, as I said before, 1998 to 2007, those golden years. He was the guy at MTV who helped artists and celebrities claim their brands and their narrative in the original wave of unscripted television. Now, we're going to talk about that unscripted television because you had to bring your A game with that during that time. Things are different now, but hey, traditionally, he hired the VJs and scouted the MTV news correspondents for all the networks. Then, because of those good relationships that he built, he began developing original programming with artists like Ozzy Osbourne, Jessica Simpson, Nick Cannon, just to name a few people out there, right? And so we're happy here to have Vinnie on the show today to talk more about his journey of building talent in the industry with MTV, his challenges he faced. And also, I wanted to add this too. He was the guy who put pop royalty in the first TV films of MTV, where he cast Mandy Moore in Together and Beyonce Knowles in Carmen, a hip opera. Now, I watched that one, loved it, need to watch it again sometime.
Yes.
Oh, my.
It still gives. It still serves in such a great way.
It certainly does. Vinnie, I'm so excited. Welcome to the show today, my friend.
Man. You just named some of my favorite people that I love watching on TV and movies, and I can't believe I got a chance. As I listened to you talk about them in the context of work, I can't believe I got to work with those people because I'm such big fans of what they're doing with their gifts and what their gifts are doing for them. I'm such a big fan of that.
I'm a big fan of it too. And I'm actually a big fan of what you're doing because the reason why you're on this show today is because you're making some major impact. But I want to know first here, Vinnie, I'm pretty sure our audience will too. How in the hell did you get into MTV industry? I mean, during that time, being on TV was hard to do. And to get in that industry, how did that start for you? What was the catalyst for that?
The catalyst for that for me was I decided to be a casting director. And to be a casting director, the best way for me to begin my career was this was my strategy, was to take out an ad in something called Backstage, which is a pretty well-known source for actors and talent who aren't represented, to find castings and other opportunities. And I put out an ad and I said, hey, I'm Vinnie Potestivo. I'm opening up Vinnie Potestivo Entertainment. And this is in October of 1998, by the way. If you have headshots and resumes, send them to me. I'm building my files. If you're open to future castings, I'd love to stay in touch. And I got, a ton of over 500 headshots, 8x10s sent to me. I felt like Santa Claus and like the Miracle of the 34th Street, when you see all those USPS boxes, bins, that I couldn't believe. And I couldn't believe that many people had responded. I got in a little bit of trouble at school because you're not supposed to start businesses on campus. You're not supposed to give people your school address. I didn't even think about what other address was I going to give them. I didn't even think about that, but I wasn't prepared for that response. And my innate reaction was, to be honest, as a data guy, to build a database. I went to Microsoft Access and Excel, and I built a database, and I inputted everyone's information, all the information they gave me. And I kind of had a way to start sorting through talent. I knew how to find talent because I was from the tri-state area and I was interested in the arts myself. So I'd become friends with people who are models and actors and dancers, and which is great because I'm not any of those. I'm just like the personality. I'm like the guy who's like just me, but I can do I can be Vinny and dance, but I can't dance. That's not my thing, but I can be Vinny and dance. That's like, I can get us there, but I realized that was my special skill set, was really just like understanding how talented people were, meeting people who had this need for talent. And that database got me a job at Hannity and Combs on Fox News in the late 90s. And I got to travel the country on this awesome bipartisan talk show where both sides of the aisle were represented. And it was my job to sort of organize the audience and understand who was asking questions. And when MTV needed to cast Choose or Lose, I got hired to come in and find the Choose or Lose team. And I was lucky enough to be part of the team that found Gideon Yago from MTV News. And if you don't remember him from 10 to the Hour, every hour, you'll know him as the creator of Newsroom with Aaron Sorkin, and then also recently Mosquito Coast, by the way, too, like a super cool writer, but just who and the MTV News gig was perfect for him. But again, I was able to organize these large scale castings and auditions through databases, through my ability to harness that info. And in 99, when MTV finally launched its talent development department by a guy named Rod Asa, my mentor for years, and it was a department of him plus me. He didn't need a casting executive to do, he was the casting executive. He didn't need a talent booker. He was the talent booker, but he needed someone who could speak the language, who could pump out one sheets, who could create talent one sheets and casting one sheets and notices. And I can wire two VCRs together. And it was, actually, you want to laugh. Not only were they so impressed, and they meaning like production at MTV, because there was like one room where we can go to get dubs, or you can go to my office because I wire two VCRs together. There's a little bit of entrepreneurism, I'll tell you that.
I like that.
But I went to school, and I bring it back to when I went to school in 95 to 99, I was the guy who was taking things from floppy disks and putting them on hard drives. I was the guy who was scanning in your pictures into a scanner so you could have, Friendster photos. I was the guy who was in the early 2000s taking your discs and uploading music to your iTunes or downloading them from Napster or LimeWire, like the way it's done, but I was always fascinated with that sort of data management. And then I combine that with like this fascination with meeting people, and then being able to have people management skills where I can remember names and faces, but also I can track information, and I'm really methodical about it. And
love it.
And to be honest, it was the perfect storm, because for 3 years I cast VJs to be hosts. But other than that, as you said earlier, it was like MTV's coming out with a film called Hip Hopera, and we got to get Carmen, we have to get Beyonce in on it. And I got to audition. I didn't audition her. There's 3 people in the room, the director, me, and her. And And just like, and by the way, the life, can I just share a little life lesson that I learned?
Yeah,
'Cause this
please
was a
do.
cool
Yeah, I
one
was just
too.
going to ask you about that experience a little bit more. Yeah.
It's a pretty sick experience when you're able to see somebody learn something that you feel like has like a lifelong impact on me. But it was me, Robert Townsend, and Beyonce in the room, and Robert was what the director. And Beyonce did her lines, and he says to me, I always thought, why is he saying this to me? He goes, Vin, I want you to take a step back. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I thought I was going to need to take a step back because I was about like 3 feet away from her, and I felt a little bit too close. I felt uncomfortable being as close to them. And he says to me, Vin, I want you to get really close. I don't need to see her acting. I don't need to see like the emotions and stuff like that. I know all that. I'm in the room. I can testify for how she's making me feel. I can't see her eyes. That's what I need to see. I want you to zoom in so close so that all I literally see in the frame are her eyes. So I zoomed in from where I was, about like 4 feet. And he's like, no. He took my hand like about a foot away from Beyonce. It was like, we need to be this close. I want to see her eyes. And I remember being like, oh, wow, this is how it's done. Like, I thought that was the lesson I was learning. Like, how things in the TV studio kind of look bigger and smaller in real life. So I thought maybe I just had like size dysmorphia, or I didn't realize.
Wow, what an experience for you to have that.
What I realized he was doing was giving Beyonce a note without giving Beyonce the note. He was telling her, look, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be cameras 6 inches from your face. I need to see that you can make eye contact with me and keep it without needing to tell her that in front of me. That I can see how even with another person in the room, or when you have crew in an intimate setting like that, those kind of performative notes can be can sort of distract from the energy that they're intended to be. And I saw a master. And I didn't realize this until years later, because it always bugged me. I was always like, why didn't he just tell Beyonce, be careful with your eye contact? Is really what I was trying to get at. And because that would ruin that's not how you give someone like that a note. And that is the difference between sharing feedback and giving constructive criticism, is that he had a creative way to bridge the gap and knew how to address it, as opposed to just pointing out something was wrong. And that lesson, stuck with me for so long, because if we can't find ways to inspire change, if we can only call out change, then the change only becomes as fulfilled as I saw it happen. And if we're in a collaborative environment, there's two people here. Change is so much greater than what I could have possibly, thought it was. And it was. And actually the scene is when Beyonce first comes into the room with Mos Def, and she's like looking around, and it's just all eye contact. And you literally see in the scene what makes her. And I've read that Beyonce talks about the level of how she learned character development on that project, because that was her first solo like featured project that a lot of people at the label didn't want to have happen, because they were very intent on keeping Destiny's Child as close together or with many, and that was right after the first iteration, or probably the second public iteration of Destiny's Child too.
Well, I love how you talk about how to inspire change as opposed to calling out change, and that lesson you learned from, Robert Downey Jr. And it's kind of like, wow, that is so impressionable upon me, because when I think about change, let's just talk about this here for a second. People in the work world and any type of business, there's going to be someone telling you, this is wrong, that is wrong. Yeah. And they wonder why they're getting resistance from people and why there's no change happening. And when you say inspire change, how do we literally take a couple of steps back, right? And look at something from a different perspective and see how we can help someone. And I love that. So, Vinnie, what celebrity careers, with this lesson that you learned, what careers did you transform and help to change? We talked about some of them, but is there any careers that you really thought you can really think about and say, wow, I took this person, this experience from A to Z, like it was amazing?
Yeah. Dozens, by the way. Are you ready? How long do we got?
We had a little time here, but you don't have to go through all of them, but just give me some highlights.
The best part was the seat that I sat at MTV. I had sort of like this 3-year career at MTV before unscripted programming really kicked off. And it was because for 3 years there was a talent development department. Well, actually I would say 2 of those 3 years there was a talent development department. My job was to listen. I would go down to the green room and listen. I had a relationship with Matthew Knowles and the Knowles family, and later on with the
He's
group.
a great guy, by the way.
Great guy, and by the way, and that's how we got Jessica Simpson and Ashley Simpson, was through Joe Simpson. It's like I got a shot through the parents, man. I'm like, I get it. I'm a mama's boy. I get it. I know how to talk to parents respectfully. I know how to explain to them what I have access to. I know what their kids' goals were. I knew what Ashante's goals were. I knew what Kelly and Jack and the Osbournes' goals were. With Ashton Kutcher, the goal was for him not to have a show, but to have a hit series. He didn't need a TV show. In fact, the last thing he wanted was to be seen as an MTV VJ. He was terrified about being, seen as he was a movie star, and he had like a hit TV show. He had, 70s show was a giant TV hit. So like cable was a step, to the left, but that's where he was able to sell the format that became Punk'd. That was literally the show that changed the perception of what he was capable of doing. And that's the thing, is that like Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey, for example, in Newlyweds, they made a decision to make decisions on camera, and that's their life. Reality TV, right? Reality, the perception of reality and reality changes when people see those changes and decisions that you've made in life. And that was something to bear witness to. And it's weird to say, but at a time before social media, where we didn't have the ability to get trolled. We didn't have the ability to get feedback, good or bad. We didn't have a platform for a community or an audience to understand, how to reciprocate energy in a way that, it just didn't happen that way because of how media was built. Those gates that, if you wanted something live on TV, TRL at 3:30 to 4:30 an hour for probably 10 years, I would say, late 90s to early 2000s, right? Up to like YouTube, AOL Music kind of time, right? Mm-hmm. That's an hour that bands decided when to launch. Music decisions were made based on that 1 hour of live programming, because that was the hour that they could depend on. And it used to be 10 to the hour, and I can go on and on and on about how television once, how it serves, how it acted as a funnel for these sources, as opposed to what it's become, which is an amalgamation of stories.
That's right. And I like how you're bringing that up, because that is something we need to know, especially with the younger generation who'll be listening to this podcast, because those days you had to have things ready and on the fly. Like you talk about unscripted television too. Those required a lot of collaboration. And if there's a mistake made, you got to go right at it, go forward with it. Don't worry about it. Whereas now, honestly, people can put things on YouTube. They can edit it, do everything, and make it look all flashy. And then you're thinking that, okay, this is great, but you're not seeing the background work of it versus what you were doing back in the day of having to do things right then and there and dealing with these multiple personalities in person. And I like how, too, I was doing a little research on you, as I do with all my guests, and you talk about how you like to bring out, you like to talk about how to find the best and the worst in people and how to translate that into their advantage on media, which I love that, because here's the thing. Nobody wants smoke and mirrors. Yeah. We want to see the real deal, how these people really are, which is what boomed that industry that you were such a part of and leading. I recently read a book called Ego's the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Freaking great book, by the way.
I'm putting it on my short list.
It is an amazing book, and it talks about how the ego gets in our way. And when we're trying to ascend into our careers, personal life, there's things that we can block ourselves from that causes us not to communicate properly with people. Now, in your career, working with multiple personalities, big personalities, Did you have those moments, Vinny, where you had to just sit down and talk with someone and say, look, I'm looking to brand what you're doing here. You got great talent, but you're preventing this from happening by being this way. Did you have to have those conversations with people? And if you did, what was it like? Did they have to shut the doors and then drop the drapes?
Yeah. Foxy. So Foxy Brown is the first person who comes to mind.
She was a great rapper, by the way. I like Foxy
an amazing
Brown.
Performer.
Yeah.
What a story.
I had a big crush on her.
What
actually.
a survivor. What a romantic rapper in a way. Like she would, to bleed and hurt for the art the way that she did. And we worked on a project called Foxy's Family. I think it was called Foxy's Family. It was a super cool. We even spent money animating the open. We got really far on that project. And she likes, I'm not going to say anything bad about Foxy. I'll say this. Some
Don't
people
do it.
might feel like, I'm going to start a war.
Getting the message.
Crazy. No, I'll say this. There was something back, and it's something about her back then that I felt like she just liked having people waiting in the wings. Like it felt like the more people were waiting, the more important what she was doing. And the more people saw that there was more people waiting, the more that we would be able to do what we do. And I get that. In New York in the early 2000s, you wanted a line outside the club, not inside the club, because everyone's going to think your performance is a smash hit inside the club if there's a bigger line outside. So I get the and I think that, and I'm talking about 2006 specifically, a project that I did with her. So like that makes me even think more about the understanding of the size of audience digitally versus in person. I remember we had a conversation, Foxy and I had a whole conversation about the size of cameras. She wanted larger cameras. And I said, but Foxy, that's not good. Like those are like older cameras that we don't need to be using, the same cameras that we shot the Osbournes on 5 years ago. We should, there's much smaller cameras that will allow us to be more nimble and will kind of be more fly on the wall so that you won't see three people in a boom. Everything can be discreet. And I think there was the pomp and circumstance of not being discreet. And I really chalked that. I didn't think about the size of the digital audience because it blows my mind when I connected how many people were watching TRL versus per day versus how many people were following Kim Kardashian on Twitter in 2009. Like I remember when I was like, wait, that's the same number. Like I know TRL is getting about like 370,000 views because I see the number. I can see what we're looking at now and why everyone's talking about the sort of demise of TV when at the height of TRL, we were getting 1.8, 2.3s. That's 2.3, almost roughly 2.3 million eyeballs versus, but even then think about that, 2.3 million eyeballs and we would be happy. I know a lot of people on Instagram and Facebook that have in TikTok that have a lot more than 2.3 million who get a lot more views. Then that's where you really start to understand the power.
Yeah, we won't even talk about that because here's the thing. I'm ready to. I have to say this. But see what you were doing with the people that you're working with. That was a real way of getting people out marketing. What people do now through social media. I mean, a lot of it is good, but I'm going to be honest with you. I see some people they have like 50 to 100 to 200,000 followers. They've only posted like 20 times, and it's like, okay, so where are these followers coming from? Now that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I want to say that I respect what you do because you were actually in a time frame where you were actually marketing people and you take that same ability with you now on social media. So it's like you're taking the old school and you're mixing it with the new school, which is absolutely phenomenal. And that's what I love because you know how to get people out there. The reason why I wanted to bring this conversation up about the ego is because I heard from a good friend of mine that whenever we're ascending in our businesses, we ascend through collaboration. And for the people watching today, the artists that are out there saying, I want to get a hold of Vinny. I want to talk to Vinny. I want to see how he can help me, and brand myself. You have to know how to work with people because they're the ones that are going to get you to the next level. And you got to watch that ego. So like you were saying with the cameras, when an artist is saying, hey, I want this, but you're saying, no, this is not what this is for. We need to do it this way. The artist has to listen to that because as artists, you can get a little, your head can get a little big sometimes. And even as anyone, your head can get a little big sometimes. So you have to learn how to take that constructive feedback from people and know they're trying to help you. And speaking of helping people, Vinnie, what does the brand development look like to you when you're working with someone?
Oh yeah, that's cool. A lot of it is like goal defining,
Okay.
and just deciding when and where we want to take the scenic route. To be honest, I think it's important to have goals, whether those are values or monetary goals or impact goals. All of those goals are important, and there's sort of a chutes and ladder version of strategy that I like to come up with, as opposed to the straight and narrow and if this then that, and if not this then we have to go back and start from from X and Y. I take time into factor. I take long-term results and short-term results, long-term goals and short-term goals, and I sort of weigh them out. And I put them through what I feel like is your like it factor filter, like the thing about you, the thing about you at the center of who you are that makes everything balance. And it's a
Ooh, I love
hard
that
way to
one.
sort of describe it, but that's
Ooh.
when that's the it factor is the thing. How does it all work? How does Vinnie do? I think my it factor, if I can be so bold as to say what I think my it factor is passion and power. They can work
Okay.
against
Passion
me,
and
and they
power.
can work against me and for me in both of the same ways. I can get passionate about an idea and say, no, don't make it a 5-act show. Make it a and I go back to this Robert Townsend story that I shared earlier with Beyonce. Never, no.
Love
Why
the
would I tell
story.
somebody no? It's another way to do it would be to keep it 5 acts and just be able to constructively add to that conversation. And and that's where the mindset for me sort of kicks into place is. And there's also, I'm so appreciative that I learned how to be creative at a time. So the thing I had, not to say over foxy in that story that I was talking about, was I wasn't a production company. I wasn't one of 20, 50, 100, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 production companies as we've seen. At MTV back then, we kind of did everything in-house. The people who have production companies, they were called production companies, and they had producers but they worked with us and with like our line producers and our team, and like Osborne's was mostly shot. Like I worked on Punk'd for the first few seasons, and then once you get the format I worked on Wild 'N Out and casting all the OG. But once you get that format up and running, my goal is to make it sustainable. My goal is to make sure that I've created talent SOPs and casting SOPs that keep those franchises alive, which, to be honest, is why I'm so happy that the challenge, getting TJ Lavin on the challenge, and then and Nick Cannon and Wild 'N Out, like those are two big franchises that I worked really hard on to try to make sure they were set up to be comedy vehicles. And to be honest, the challenge for me was like all about athleticism, mental and physical, because I worked at MTV in the late 90s when guys used to watch MTV before they left for ESPN and left for sports. Like I used to have Sports and Music Festival on MTV. There used to be a different male audience that didn't just derive from rock. And that was the other thing too, is music changed. So
yeah, the scene did change with the music.
90s rock. Look at those concerts and the all the poor things that are in the news about that. And then, but what the cool thing for me about being at MTV then was, I feel like in like 95, when I was watching MTV, they like were taking the cameras off the music videos, and you were seeing the audience. You were seeing audiences and people
engagement.
And I feel like when I got to MTV, we gave the cameras to the talent instead of pointing the cameras on the talent.
Okay.
So I felt like that was like a unique thing that we did. It was like, hey, Osborne's, you want to do it? Here's some cameras. Hey, here's some cameras. Go make it. And what MTV did brilliantly, unfortunately, getting rid of some music videos, but they created space for storytelling. That's what MTV did that AOL didn't do by making it music videos on demand. Where they took the eyeballs for people who wanted something immediately, and we created space, and then we stuck to it. We aired something 50, 60, 70, 100 times over and over and over again, because they were sort of like just like evergreen stories that were relatable. I think that creating the space for the storytelling is a thing that MTV did.
I like that.
That no other cable network did the way that we did. And that's what changed the programmatic landscape of reality TV when everyone realized what a story engine was, how to predict the arc of a series without really knowing. In fact, I was excited to come on this podcast because I like to talk about, breathe for a second. In this like day and age where everyone talks about repurposing content.
Yes.
And
okay.
like,
let's get into that conversation.
This is like nails on repurpose is nails on a chalkboard to me. And I love that you have purposeful in here because there is nothing purposeful about repurposing, about creating something and then thinking, hey, wait, now what should I do with it? And I love this idea.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, is that cool? Do you agree?
I agree with you. Yes.
I come from television. I know that when I create a 30-minute show, I have to have a 15-second spot that's going to sell the episode. I'm looking throughout that entire week when I'm recording that episode, I'm looking for what I think that 15-second spot's going to be, because in my producer notes, I actually have to write that down. Like I say, like, this is, I think, could be the tagline for the episode. Like, that's something that's expected for me to identify, to be mindful about and create on purpose. So this idea of repurposing to me is hard because I saw TV networks do this where they thought they can take bad footage from TV and repurpose it and put it on digital, and that didn't work.
That didn't work. That was complete fail.
Yeah, right. I want to let everyone know that, like, I just, not to say that what works on one platform won't work on the other, but if I know that I have a playlist on YouTube called 1 Minute with Vin, and if I can call you up on YouTube and ask if you'd like to put that playlist on your YouTube page for me, then I know that I can always just have like a 1 Minute with Vin segment in every podcast that I do. That's cool. So I might think of pre-purposing an idea so that I can pre-produce it and anticipate that need, and then put that into the contextual structure of my podcast. And I love that. If I'm using weird words, I'm sorry. I don't know. I just started getting like weird word. I got weird words because I think I got insecure in what I was talking about.
No, you're good. You're good. No, this is I can see the passion. This is why I wanted you on the show. And you talk about purpose. That's what it is. Like, when you're doing anything, what is the purpose behind it? What is your intention? And what do you want to go with it? And that's why I feel like you're so successful in what you do with this brand development of finding out who the person is. I like how you talked about the values, getting into the center of the being. There's so many quotable moments in this show, Vinny. I got to pick a quote to use, my brother. So there are a lot of gems you have dropped here. And more importantly, to be in this new phase of what we call social media and to bring this level of experience with you, like the sharing of the story about, Robert Downey Jr., the, Foxy Brown, and all these other things that are great experiences for people to understand. Because here's the thing that I've learned. There's a lot of talent out there. And right now we can easily say this. There are some people out there who are the next big thing, but will they be the next big thing? Because they have to take that step outside their comfort zone. They have to be able to drop the ego. They have to be able to work with people such as yourself in order to get that centering of who they are out there. And that takes a lot of courage to do that. Now, speaking of that, the courage of things, I want to talk about the impact that you're having on diversity in social media and what that looks like. So what are you doing currently for that? Because here's the thing I've learned. Big word right now that people are using is called inclusion. And I like that word. I like how people are using it. But there are some people that just use it to say that, hey, we're including everybody. So don't point the finger at us. Okay, we're good. We're good over here. Yeah. But there are some people who are actually, they're making it happen. So what are you doing these days to impact diversity on social media?
I love that question. And I think that, to be really blunt, I think that I get to be such a good ally because I've been blessed to work with so many allies that showed me the difference between showing up and standing up for me. So I in a very intimate setting and then in very public settings as well. So when I launched my podcast, I called it I Have a Podcast because of this idea that people either who create podcasts and have actually own their own podcast, they would relate to that idea. I have a podcast. I also thought that the listeners would relate to this. I have a podcast to recommend. I have a podcast for you. I have a podcast about this. And I sort of love that understanding that the listener and the podcaster both would be able to relate to a similar term. When I launched my podcast, I got it registered for about $2,000 is what it cost to get registered. So I officially have a podcast, and trademarks globally as well, not just in America.
Very important that you did that.
Oh yeah.
The trademarking is essential. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some IP rights that you get out of the gate, depending on what podcast host platform you're using. So let's exclude Anchor from this conversation. But anything basically other than Anchor, you pretty much have all the rights to. Anchor retains some rights. So, but anyway,
I want to go off on just going to add something quickly here about that, because going back to Mr. Matthew Knowles, I call him Mr. Matthew Knowles. He's Mr. He's the guy. I met him back in 2018 in Italy, and we have been connecting since then. And one of the things that he told me about anything, he says, Adrian, if you're going to do this, is it trademark? You know how he looks at, he has this look, how he looks at you. Oh, yeah. It's amazing. He's like seeing through you, and you're just like, okay, is he looking back? And because he sees you, right?
He's telling you.
He's telling you. And the fact that you brought that up just brought that into my memory bank, because that's the first thing he always asks is like, have you trademarked it? Mm-hmm. Have you looked it up? Does anyone else have it? Because if you don't, down the road, it may be a problem for you. So the fact that you took your podcast and you trademarked it is important for the podcasters that are listening today. Think about that, your podcast. And so, go ahead, Vinnie.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I use it in development I make sure that I can trademark something all the way through to completion. I use it as a tool in development. If somebody else is capable of making a story or the same story, or wants to do what I do, I'm often like, do it. Do it. It's just, I'm full of ideas. You know what I mean? Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier, is like at MTV, I wasn't trying to sell shows to MTV. I was just trying to create them. So I was paid to create shows. I was paid to go out and at 2:00 in the morning, run into Wade Robson and then be like, Wade, you should have a dance show on MTV. And he'd be like, that would be cool. What would it be called? I'm like, I don't know, call it the Wade Robson Dance Project. And then we make it. And then or when Shayna and Travis got married, or Ashley Parker Angel, like I love relationships. I love relationships because of the complexity of them and the mutual and individual goals to achieve, success together and independently. I think those are fun. But so to answer your question though, but I have a podcast. So I created this podcast. I have a podcast, and I called all the people that I've worked with to recall all of our sort of creative decisions, just so we can sort of make them try to figure out why and how it all worked in our favor. Also, as a way to show people just specifically what my creative process has been. It's not like it's not a podcast where a lot of different people are going to come in and you're going to hear a lot of different ways to create and blah, blah. It's a very, very specific podcast about like my experiences that I can speak to and can attest to have been, successful. But I have a podcast.com was the platform for me where I felt most like an ally, where I realized I have the ability to create a Google verified news platform where I can ask people to identify themselves and their podcasts. I can create articles about them using their name and everything you need to sort of help you get verified on, to get a wiki page, which is what you need to get verified on social media, and like that whole trickle down piece to it. I know that that's a big pain point. So the first thing I did was create that. I created basically a database, which, as you know, I'm pretty good at creating databases, and then a platform where brands and podcasters can come together and they can share in sponsorship opportunities the same way that brands and influencers are doing on marketing platforms. And then I actually went to Podfest, and someone asked me if I had that interview. I have an interview form, and they asked if I had it in Spanish, and I was like, oh. Not yet, but give me like 24 hours. And I went and got that. I went and got it translated. And then I went back to her and said, look, I have this idea of I'm going to ask the questions on a microphone, and then I'm just going to record it once. Everyone's going to answer their questions, and I can just chop it in and make it look like I'm asking questions. And so I can make some video content. So like you can record your answers, send them in to me, and my team will chop it up. I said, wouldn't it be cool if you were like I'm going to need someone to speak Spanish now that I have Spanish forms coming in. So I think it's a really cool platform and way to show people your expertise. And if you would be into the opportunity and that collaboration. So it's like building a platform for collaboration was important. And
that's important, very important to do.
And that's where it was. I have a podcast.com, and because of that, I also created something called my Creator Accelerator program.
Okay.
And it's free if you identify as LGBTQIA, BIPOC, AAPI, a female, an educator, a student, or an ally to any of us. Like, I'm really throwing you a bone here, you know what I mean? But I want to help people who qualify to be creators strictly because they got an iPhone. Because those people, which is majority of the creators that are on this world, on this planet now, because by way of tools, they became creators, by way of access to platforms, they became creators. What I want to do is help them be successful as creators. I want to show them how to win awards, how to get credit. By the way, you can get credit for podcasts on IMDb right now. Like movie stars get credit for films on IMDb. There's 3 types of intellectual property that's allowed to get credit on IMDb right now: film, TV, and podcast, not digital streaming. So if you have a digital series or you're an actor, unfortunately, those projects aren't on IMDb. But as a podcaster, to get that data point from IMDb, which is Amazon owned, to Google, I promise you, it will change your Google SEO. And I actually have my friend Ben Courier and I put together this awesome step-by-step guide. So if you go to www.audiolinked.com, and I'll send you this link, Adrian, afterwards, if you want to.
Yeah, send me the link. We'll put it into the show notes for sure. And it kind of leads me to that next question for you. Like, this information you're providing is like mind opening. Like, for instance, I didn't know that podcasting could be credited on IMDb. And that is something that is a next level step for a lot of the podcasters out there, and even people looking to get into podcasting, which is why, once again, you are the man, because you know how to market and to get talent into certain places, as you would say, to be successful. That's your purpose. Now, leads me to this question here. What is your overall purpose for why you do what you do? Like, what is the aim here? Yeah. You talked a little bit about helping people be successful, but what is the purpose behind what you do?
I love that. I like helping people be successful, to be honest, by way of helping them be more discoverable. That's the thing that I think I tapped into as a casting director and a producer for these 25 years. And the reason why I want people to be more discoverable is because right now, the loudest voice, the wrongest voice, the thisest voice, and the thatest voice, and the TikTok voice, and the algorithm voice, and the Netflix du jour, these are the voices that are penetrating mass media.
They're oversaturating it.
Yeah, broadcast media.
Yeah.
Narrowcast media like podcasts and some social media. And I think that we, the people, have the ability as small business owners, and especially as small business owners, by the way. So get me started here. Small business owners, like the way that we charge and provide our services and products, and the way we employ and don't employ our colleagues and the people we work with, and how we're treating each other as there's a lot more small businesses in America than big businesses, and we have a huge way to impact how we interact with each other. You've seen Bitcoin go up and down. You're seeing the stock go up and down. We're trying to figure out ways to securely interact, to collaborate with people. And I think that people who own their podcasts, I think that creative IP is something that's going to come back to them in a way that's as valuable as maybe some of these like early NFT stories that we heard. I think that when small businesses and medium businesses realize the value of 200 sustainable downloads per episode as a podcaster versus the 90,000 likes that you got on one photo 2 years ago during the pandemic on TikTok, and the traits that I think you're going to see the difference that. So just it's and also the cool thing about podcasting is like this is so podcasting 1.1. Like right now, we have to go to Apple. We've had to go to Apple for a podcast forever. Mm-hmm. So I just want to tell you about the MySpace and Facebook story that didn't end so well for MySpace. Like there's a whole 2.0 to what we're doing here. And I brought up this word narrowcasting, but if we took podcasts and put them on televisions if we took narrowcasting and could broadcast that market to market on television, the technology works, the channels work. We obviously are aware that there can be 100 or 1,000 channels on our TV, as there has been suddenly just an increase of channels. The space is getting bigger. So the more discoverable I can make you, and whether that's through consistency, whether that is through just core creative, but for me, it's an earned respect. And I would hate for people to not post something because I don't have a content strategy. I want them to be the content strategy. Like that's it. Be the content strategy. That the words you speak are the words that should be repeated.
That you are the centering of who you are. Vinnie, this is amazing, brother. How can people get in contact with you to learn more about marketing strategy? Even to follow your podcast. You just mentioned it. I have a podcast. That's your podcast. You'll send me the link to put in the show notes. But is there any other way that they can contact you to reach out? Even some of this talent that we have right now, they're probably going to be watching this and saying, "Oh, I want to work with Vinnie."
Cool. How do they appreciate that? Yeah, go to Adrian's Friends and then look for @Vinnie Potestivo. I'm there. Trust me. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I love starting off conversations with, "Hey, how you doing?" And like, let's build a relationship. I've always worked with my friends. It's the only way I've kind of ever worked. And I'm not saying that I have to agree with everything. I have lots of friends that I don't agree with, by the way, who enhance my life because I chose not to walk in their footsteps, but I still need them around. So that being said, I'm not looking for someone who is only like-minded or only agrees on my core values. I genuinely love helping and learning how people create and connect. And I think that we all do it uniquely. And I know those, and I know that, and that's something I can help you find a way to be more discoverable as a personal brand, or have it if you have a message, but as well as finding your audience, making your audience more discoverable for you. I believe in the law of attraction, and it starts with this. It starts with a conversation. It starts with energy, dedicated time and energy. So I really appreciate y'all for listening to this for as long as you have, because this was the time that we created to kick off this like next wave of energy. And I'll tell you this, the energy. I did like TV 20 years ago, whatever. I'm still getting a return on that energy. You know, all the TV shows you watched back then, I can't wait to talk to y'all about it, because I know we both saw the same episodes, and I know we both saw different things while watching it. And I think that's so cool that we have that shared experience in common. So,
but as you mentioned, brother, this is energy, man. This is all about energy and the sharing of energetic space, which you have done today with me and the audience. And let me say this. Definitely, you are a courageous creator of your own change, and you bring purpose to your life, and you are the man. And I want the audience today to reach out to Vinnie to learn more about what he's doing, to follow him, support his work. And if you're an artist or anyone looking to take it to the next level, you need to collaborate with people. Let Vinnie be that person for you, or let him help you find the right collaboration. Vinnie, it's been wonderful, brother, to have you on the show, and I look forward to having you again.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait.
Thank you for listening to the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. Subscribe to the show and connect with Adrian on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Learn more about the host and his change-making perspectives at adrianstarks.net, and download the podcast on your favorite platform to be inspired by more life-changing content. It's time to be a courageous creator of your own change and be purposeful about doing it.